Okay, so we're live. Okay, we've got someone's popped on. I can't see exactly who it is. So hi everyone, I'm Trina Baldwin and I have with me today Megan Henshaw, and this has all come about because of a post that someone put up yesterday asking me more about living in Bali. Megan and I are both in Bali now. We're both single parents. Hi Amy, thanks for popping on. We're both single parents. We met in Thailand when we were travelling, and then we've crossed paths again here in Bali. Anyhow, we want to get on and just answer some of the questions that people put up. Hey Amoya, how are you? Thank you for letting us share more about Bali with everyone.
Thank you.
So I've written down some notes from all the questions that everyone's put on, but first of all I'll just give you a little bit of an intro to who I am. So I'm Trina Baldwin, I'm an Aussie, headed there in September. Fantastic Amy, hopefully this will help you, and if you've got any other questions just pop them in the chat and we'll attempt to answer all those for you as well. So I'm travelling with my 13-year-old son. We first started doing the travelling lifestyle when he was about 10, and what we did was we travelled in a van around Australia for a year, and then the travel bug was still in us, and so we decided to take it international. And about 10 months ago we started off. Our initial intention was to spend 3 months in each destination and just keep travelling. So we come to Bali first because we'd been here a lot on holidays before and we felt reasonably comfortable with the place. We went to Thailand, which is where Megan and I met, and then we just loved Bali so much that we come back, and we've actually been here ever since. We've lived in a couple of different places. We've lived down on the coast in a place called Kerobokan, which is in between two of the major expat centres of Seminyak and Canggu, and we've been up in Ubud for the last 3 months, and I never thought I could fall more in love with Bali, but on our move to Ubud I certainly have. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and Megan, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I am traveling with a 9-year-old, he's soon to be 10, and we started traveling full-time in October. We started with the Project World School Summit in Chiang Mai, and that's where I met Trina, as she said. She made a strong case for Bali. At that time had zero interest in coming to Bali. We traveled and found ourselves down in Australia in January, and I was really lonely, really burnt out from travel decisions. Budget was going by really fast in Australia, obviously, and it just wasn't working down there, and decided to come back to Southeast Asia. Heard there were good schools in Bali, and heard there were a lot of families, heard there were a lot of single parents, and just decided to go for it. Came for on the 30-day visa, extended again, and we've been here now for about 5 months.
Excellent. Cool. So one of the questions that had come up when I mentioned how affordable it was here was, what do I actually do for work? So my main income producing work is I do transcription work, medico-legal transcription work. Excuse me. So that's actually a little business that I had started up before we actually went travelling, and I've been able to build that as I go along. But I'm also working on other online income producing stuff so that I've got more streams of income. You've probably heard about the benefits of having multiple streams of income. So I do that, I do affiliate marketing, and it's not a income producing business at the moment, but I have started up WORLDSCHOOL TV. So, you know, hopefully you can pop on and have a look at that. On WORLDSCHOOL TV I'm interviewing people world schooling on all different subjects, including destinations and events and our kids' education. I'll pop a link to that, but that's what I do. Obviously when you're travelling all the time, it's so much more convenient to have something online that you're working on, because you can take that anywhere, and I'm pretty grateful that I've been able to do that. And I'm happy to chat to anyone about how to get into VA work, or learn different skills that will help you do that. I was asked about what my son Dylan does for school. So people who are travelling take on all different ways of schooling their kids, and there's so many different theories, and basically the way I look at it is you do what works for you and your family, your kids. My son's actually on the autism spectrum, and he has been very challenged with mainstream schooling for his whole schooling life. And that was actually one of the reasons why we decided to go travelling full time, because I decided that I was going to homeschool him. And we tried homeschooling while we were in the van, but it didn't work. It still didn't match him, it didn't match me, it didn't match us as a family. And I researched a lot more into unschooling, and we decided together that unschooling was the way to go. And I'll be completely honest, I still have that parent guilt in my ear of, am I doing the right thing by my kid and whatever, but I also have a lot of proof that it is working for him, and that he's getting so much more out of it than he ever did in the mainstream system. But once again, I'm not saying that's the way to go. You choose what works for you. Megan's got a different experience, and I'll let her talk to you a little bit about what she does with education.
When we started traveling in October, it was my plan to use Khan Academy to homeschool. I have an education background, so how hard can that be to educate your own child, right? It wasn't working for us. It wasn't working to unschool. It wasn't working to use Khan Academy or other online forms. We just were really clashing together, and that's where he wasn't excited to take advantage of museums and parks and all these offerings. I'm pretty passionate about tweens and early teenagers because it's this really awkward time where they're not really interested in the play groups, but they can't really do things by themselves, and they're not into museums. So our experience was that it wasn't fun. Like, traveling wasn't fun together. It's not what it looks like. So that's where I surrendered, and I said, we really, really want a learning community, not necessarily a school, but just a learning community. And that's what I had heard about Bali. So at that time, that's where we came. I toured 3 or 4 different schools all over the island. There are, I think, 10, I'm going to easily say 10 different schooling options, from very expensive to like homeschool, much more affordable within a 10-mile radius. Most of them are down near Canggu and more near the beach area. Ubud doesn't have as many yet. There's a philosophy for everybody. There's a philosophy for every single age. It's out there. We found a place that works for us right now, and there's no such thing as a perfect school. I think that's a really important piece to know, is no matter where you are, I know we're all searching for it as world schoolers, it just doesn't exist. So we found a good school in a neighborhood we love, and we're really happy with that. Rowan has peers, he has a learning community, and then I'm able to do what I need to do for my learning experiences and my health, and then we can come together in the evenings and on the weekends and on our days off, and then have a better experience traveling together. We, as solo parents, all of us are here, we know how exhausting it is, how tiring it is, how hard it is, the tears we cry over it, tears I cried this morning over it. And you have to figure out what's right for you. If unschooling is right for you, awesome. If it's not right for you, you shouldn't have any shame or any guilt about that whatsoever. Find a learning community, find your village, find your homeschool people. Like, that's what it's about. So that's why I love Bali, is that we have been able to find this amazing learning community, an amazing community of solo parents, an amazing community of 2-parent households that are very welcoming to single parents. For us, it's check, 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 check. And again, if we haven't answered your questions about specific schools, feel free to just message or ask more, and I can elaborate based on the schools I've toured and our knowledge with it.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess that just, that's a bit of an intro to us and our kids and what we're up to there. So we'll get straight on to the whole Bali stuff as a single parent. The main expat areas are Sanur, Seminyak, Canggu and Ubud. Ubud is where we are at the moment. You can see the beautiful rice fields in the background here. It's this is actually one of my main offices that I use. Hang out here a lot. Excuse me. And what I love about Bali, firstly, I'm going to say that everything we're discussing here today, whether it's our opinions on Bali, education, it's all just based on our experiences and our perspective. And just keep in mind that your experiences and perspective may be different, but just take this information that we give you and use it however it suits you. So the main expat areas, what I love personally about Bali is the people. It's hard for me to actually put a specific word on what I love the most, and for anyone who relates to the energetic feeling, there's just a really good energy about Bali. Now, in saying that, and this might sound a bit woo-woo, I understand, but Bali can be beautiful and comforting and healing, but if you've got stuff going on that you need to deal with, it can bring it up in your face and be really intense as well. So whether you choose to look at that as a negative or choose to look at it as a positive and actually use that intense in-your-face stuff to actually look at what's going on for you and grow from it, that's totally up to you. But I find there's a beautiful energy here, and the people, the Indonesians, are so welcoming. I just want to give you a little example there. The place we've moved into now, a lot of the Indonesians live in family compounds. So for generations and generations, they'll have an area where there's a few different houses, and the brothers and sisters and mothers and uncles and aunties, everyone will live together. Some of the family compounds, they've taken it on as a business, and they've put extra little house in there that they rent out, and that's what we're renting out. So we're living with a family community. When I first moved in there, being a Westerner, I found it quite uncomfortable that they were always around, and to me I felt like they were always in my face. But it wasn't until I relaxed into the idea and surrendered to the fact that this is a cultural thing. These people, they don't make an appointment to come and visit their friends. They just rock up. And if their friends are busy, they'll just hang around and sit on the patio and just be there, be in your presence. They don't expect to be entertained, but they're there for you. And that was one of the things I had to relax into. And once I did, I've found it the most comforting family type experience. And in saying that, I probably won't move from there, because both for myself and for my son, I'm a solo mum. There's dads around. In fact, we've had one of the people say when my son was chucking a big tanty and said that...
Throwing a tantrum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And said that, his mum hated him and he was having a big fight with me. And one of the locals come up to him and said, well, you've got lots of mums here. Made, which is his wife, is my ma, your ma, and I'm your papa, and all that sort of stuff. So, excuse me, that's one of the things that I love the most, is the people. Megan, did you want to share what you love most about Bali?
Oh, so much. Like I said, I came here and I actually had zero expectations, had no interest in coming originally, and I wanted someplace affordable just to recover for a little bit, and it's everything. I think the biggest thing, especially here in Ubud, it's a mass congregation of like-minded people, and so everybody that's here, they're awoke to that their lives are missing something, or they're trying to fix something. So if you're in Bali, essentially, it's not, especially in Ubud, it's not really to party, it's not to live this like fantasy life, it's really to better yourself and be around a community of people that are going to support you. So I love that, and I think the biggest thing about making Bali work is that it's a place that you have to go with the flow. And so it's a place where you have to check your expectations, you have to go with the flow of the people being really kind, the traffic being insane, all these things that are sometimes thrown as negatives. Like they are challenges, and you have to just kind of embrace them, and that's where you learn growth, right? Is going through that time. So we love it just for all the gifts it's given us. It's so hard to put into words, but it's just a magical, every day is magical in so many good ways.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll get more onto the specific questions that people have posted. And the first one was visa options. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that visa rules in Indonesia do tend to change a lot. Oh, excuse me. And there's a lot of grey areas. Do you want to start on this? Because I'm going to, yeah.
I'm also going to add that visa runs are illegal. In most countries, you're not supposed to do them. So, you know, it's making sure that you, when you go to a neighboring country to check in, that you spend a day there and not just turn around and come back. There is, for most countries in the world, to enter Indonesia, it's a 30-day exempt visa. So you don't need a visa to come for 30 days. You don't have to pay any money. You might need to show proof of an onward ticket. Always the possibility that you need to show your bank account. But otherwise, basically, you just get stamped in as long as you're there for the purposes of holiday or tourism. From that, okay, so then the second option is, this gets really confusing. We might have to just like type this up. If you know that you want to stay longer than 30 days, when you land, before you go through customs and immigration, you can stop at the visa desk and you can pay $35 US or 50 Australian dollars?
Yeah. 50
Australian dollars for a VOA called a visa on arrival. And you have to get that if you want to stay beyond 30 days. Then you'll stamp through. From there, you can extend your 30-day visa by another 30 days. It's called a visa extension, thus getting 60 days in Indonesia for about, at the end of the day, maybe $60, $75 per person, 150 US dollars for two people.
Yeah. And that's if you're using an agent as well. And I think that's one thing I want to pop in, is that I would recommend that you use an agent no matter what visa you're going into. Yeah, it's a little bit extra to cost, but man, it cuts out all the paperwork you have to fill in, all the time that you need, and
3 trips to immigration.
And once again, I've been using an agent for the last 10 months. And I don't benefit financially from this, but I'm happy to pass those people on to anyone who wants to speak more to an agent. And I'd probably suggest that anyone who's looking to come, talk to an agent first and just explain to them what you're doing. I mean, they're used to coming across all different sorts of scenarios. So just tell them what you want to do, be quite upfront, and they'll tell you the ins and outs. They know the loopholes. They're the ones that are going to do it all for you, and it's really not that much extra to pay for an agent to do it all. That'd be my #1 tip when it comes to visas.
Just traveling as a solo parent, right? Like the #1 tip is find out how you can economize, I can't say that word, economize your finances and your time. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have to pay a little bit more money to feel secure, to feel safe, to have less stress as a single parent. And one of the ways to do that is then to pay a visa agent to go down to immigration for you 2 out of the 3 times, to fill out the paperwork, to give you more time, to navigate a system that's really confusing, and the laws change all of the time.
Yeah.
You also can apply for a 60-day tourist visa before you come if you're a person that can plan in advance. Good on you for that. That's awesome. And then you can also apply for like a 6-month visa. Like, these are all options. It's a complicated system. So if you have more questions, just ask.
Yep. Okay, so the next question was the best time to visit. I think any time is a good time to visit. If people were to say the worst time to visit, they'd probably say rainy season, which is over, December, January, February. But in all honesty, that rainy season, yes, you can get really big downpours of rain, really big downpours, but often they're late afternoon or overnight, and the days are still sunny. I've not ever been here when there's been weeks on end of rain, maybe a couple of days, and it's very humid in that time as well, but there's lots of pools around, and yeah, I don't know that I'd really have a... Would you have a perfect time to visit Bali?
I'm loving May. It's a little bit cooler, there's a nice breeze. It is picking up with tourist traffic now that it's after Memorial Day, so I would say a better time to visit is off season if you can. But same thing, like rainy season was beautiful and stunning, and it just was, you adapt, you persevere, like that's part of traveling is you adapt with the weather, so don't let the rainy season scare you at all.
No.
It's beautiful.
Yep. So the next one was, are there affordable places to stay if visiting for a few weeks? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's everything from hostel accommodation that you can get for $5-7 US a night to luxury villa accommodation that's $300-400 a night, and there's a lot of accommodation in between. When we were holidaying here before we went full-time travelling, we would go and we would stay generally in the Leggy and Seminyak tourist areas, and I never paid any more than 50 Australian, which is about 35 US a night, and that was always in somewhere nice, like I never went less than 3-star, and 3-star in Bali is, I don't know, what's the comparison for the US?
Luxury, $35 US a night in Bali will get you like an outdoor deep bathtub, and you're just gonna feel like luxury and royalty.
Yeah.
You know, cleaning and serviced every single day, and breakfast free, and it can take you really, really far. We're at, I see another question was, how much a month does it cost to live in those homes? We are in a 1-bedroom studio with an indoor kitchen, which is important because a lot of the kitchens here are outdoor. We have a bathtub, and we have natural light, 2 decks, and we are paying $350 a month, and it gets serviced once a week. And what are you paying for your 2-bedroom?
Yeah, so we're in a 2-bedroom, the one I was talking about in the family compound. So it's 2-bedroom private with a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, excuse me, and we're paying 550 Australian dollars a month. So what's that?
So she's paying about 400 US dollars a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath on a family compound. Electricity
included, gas included, water, and cleaning once a week, and bed sheets changed and laundry on that as well. So yeah, it's really affordable, and once again, there's all different ranges of accommodation that you can find there as well. You know, if you were going to pay for, say, a 2-bedroom with a pool, you're probably looking at an average of around $1,000 US.
2-bedroom with a pool?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
12 million.
Yeah, that's probably about accurate. So you like any other place you travel to, you kind of have to decide what's important to you. What are your priorities for your living? Do you need air conditioning? Do you need a pool? Do you need service? And then you kind of just go from there. Location is everything. Like for us, we actually live just a couple blocks from each other. And we love this neighborhood. There's cheaper places to stay around Ubud. It's outside of Ubud actually by about a 5-minute scooter ride. But you kind of have to balance those things so that you have personal peace and happiness, and can give your children a secure sanctuary, and yourself. Most importantly, yourself.
Okay, so the next one, is food expensive? Once again, there's the complete range there. You can eat at a local warung. Warung is the name for cafe or restaurant. And you can eat there for $2 a meal. And that it might be rice and chicken and veggie, that kind of thing. There's also, if you're going to eat Western food, it is more expensive, but I've found it is more expensive, but still not comparable to what's in Australia at all.
Or the US.
So, Western food, maybe if you went to a really nice place and got a burger and chips, it might cost you $8 US. Yeah?
Yeah, that's actually like what I was going to think. If we want to go all out to eat, I mean, Rowan can get whatever he wants, and I'll get whatever I want, and we're talking like vegan, gourmet, fresh vegetables. I can get a beer if I want, or a whole coconut with it. Rowan can get a soda, and it's never more than like $8 US, and so that's like a big night out. And there's gluten-free restaurants, there's vegan restaurants here. There's, I don't know,
anything you can probably.
There's a place that does a 21-course dessert menu here.
What?
Yeah.
I haven't found that yet.
Yeah.
You haven't passed that one on.
Yeah. So it's like food heaven here. If you've been to like California or Boulder, Colorado, like it's foodie heaven, except you can actually afford it. Smoothie bowls, you know, like superfoods are just everywhere. So it's a very healthy place to be. Gluten-free should be easy.
Yeah. Okay, so how is transportation? Look, public transportation is pretty much non-existent. It is around, but it's not something I'd recommend taking. It's not reliable, and the routes just don't work. So there's a few different options when it comes to transportation. When you're down on the coast, which is more in the tourist areas, so say the Legian, Seminyak areas, there's companies Grab and Gojek, which is like Uber. Uber's in the States.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can use them. Really, really, really inexpensive. I'm going to let you talk into the whole taxi thing, because I think you put a post and answer up.
The taxi mafia?
Yeah.
It's my understanding that the taxi mafia there's a big taxi company called Bluebird Taxi, and then there's in Abood, there's a lot of like local, like mom and pop, grassroots people, if you will, that are looking to drive tourists for their travels. And what they charge though is like, you know, $300,000 for just a few miles. It's a little bit exorbitant, to be honest, in comparison with the cost of the rest of living. And their argument, of course, is that they should, if you're coming to Bali, like they should get fair wages. And there's an argument for saying like we should support that then if we're here. But then as places like Lyft and Uber, companies like that have come in and said, no, this is free enterprise, like we want to put this on the app. Me personally, I love using Lyft and Grab for tracking as like a single person, you know, like I want people to know where I'm going. I want to be able to see where I'm going, and I want there to be a record of where I've traveled. They've come in and they've lowered the prices, and there's like a taxi mafia. I don't know if they kill people, I don't know if they beat people up, if that's what they mean by it, but you'll see things like, if you love Abood, don't use Gojek, like don't use these taxi mafias. So honestly, if you're going to come, you're going to have a better experience here if you can either hire a driver and put that in your budget, or if you get yourself a lesson, get yourself comfortable, get your international driver's permit, and get yourself on a scooter, your life is going to be a lot easier here in Bali.
And, you know, I just want to talk into the whole scooter thing as well. A lot of people are scared to ride a scooter, and rightly so. When you know you're a Westerner, you come in, so was I, and you see the traffic sometimes, especially down on the coast, not as much in Ubud. But if, you know, like Megan mentioned before, if you relax into and go with the flow of everything here, you'll understand that it's truly organised chaos.
Totally. No rules, but organisation.
Yeah. And if you relax into that, and once again, it's hard. If I was seeing someone saying this to me before I did it, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, you're talking out your ass. But especially in Ubud, I think that you really do need a scooter to get the most out of your experience here, because you don't want to be stuck just in amongst the busyness. You want to get out and explore the beauty that's around.
You don't want to live in a booth center. It's
No.
crazy. The other thing is, a misconception about coming to this area, everything I heard was that drivers are so cheap. Drivers are so cheap here. Maybe they're cheap for one day, but they are not cheap for sustainable lifestyle. So, for example, if you wanted to rent a driver for the whole day to take you around, you're looking at 500 to 600,000, maybe 400,000 Indonesian rupiah, which is about 30 US dollars. You could have a driver for a whole day. Now, 1 or 2 days is fine, but like to live here longer, that's more than I can do on my budget. And so that's just something that needs more transparency, I think, if you're coming to Bali. Scooter rental cost is 600. I pay 700 a month.
Yeah.
It's about 3 or 4 US dollars a day to rent a scooter. So you pay.
So I pay 60 Australian dollars a month, which is what, 50 US, something like that.
I pay about 50 a month.
Yeah. And once again, daily rates are always going to be a lot more than monthly rates, but there's scooter rental everywhere. Yeah, and that comes with your helmets and that. But I would recommend getting yourself an international driver's license before you come. It's not often that people get picked up, but there's still corruption in this country. So if you do get picked up, you could be stung with a mighty fine. So a story there is that I do have my international driver's license, but I just went out without it one day. There was a huge lineup. The cops were pulling over people, everyone with white skin, they were pulling over. There were, probably 50 or 60 people there at a time. And because I didn't have my license on me, I got hit with about a 50 US dollar fine, which had to be paid in cash. And so I'm sure it just got put in the pocket and split up amongst them. But, that's part of the fun of being in Bali too. But yeah, get yourself an international driver's license. It's also going to often travel insurance won't cover you if something happens if you don't have a license as well.
And a lot of times travel insurance does not cover scooters. So if you're going to rent, you have to be okay with if your insurance has it or not, and kind of taking that risk. And the other plus side though is you're never going to go more than like 25 miles per hour, 40 kilometers per hour in Bali. Like the roads just are small, there's too much traffic. Sometimes it takes a couple hours to go just a few miles if in really peak traffic. So yeah, just you have to be okay with some of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. The question was there was someone who was looking at relocating and could only find expensive schools and asked, are there cheaper routes? And Megan touched on that before, and yes, there are. The school that you looked at was, I'm going to guess, was the Green School, and yeah, it's way out of a lot of dual income family budgets. But there's also cheaper schools, and there's homeschool groups for some ages. I've found personally that the younger kids, probably up till about 8, are more well catered for. I don't know, 8 to 10 are more well catered for. My son's now 13, nearly 14, and I'm finding it harder to find options for him. But if you put yourself out there, you will find something. And that's another thing, actually. I wasn't going to talk about this until later, but community. Particularly in Ubud, I have found the best community that I've come across since we've been travelling anywhere, actually. There's family meetups every week, and this isn't just single parents, but there are a few single parents here, and the kids get to play together, the parents get to talk to other adults. there's always an activity.
There's more activities than you want to go to, quite frankly. You're like, how do I fit all of this into my life? And
absolutely. When I first got here, I was so excited about all the things that there were to do and all these new people to meet, and I ended up really burning myself out and going, wow, I have to slow down. It's the busiest social life I've ever had. But that's one thing I think, and this isn't just Bali, this is when you're traveling anywhere, and maybe even more so as a single parent. It's so important to find that community, and it is there to be found, especially in orbit here. But if you keep looking, and if you step outside your comfort zone, because I've had to do that as well, because I've always been a bit shy of putting myself in amongst new people, it's going to make your whole experience and your whole family's experience even so much more valuable. Yeah. Okay.
If you're thinking of coming here, a good place to start is if you want to join the Facebook group Abood Kids Meetups or Abood Kids Weekly Meetups. There's a woman here that has just like taken the community under her wings, Tammy Brooks, and she just every single night of the week almost there's something for every age group of kids. So that's a good thing to start lurking and seeing what there is.
Yeah, Tammy actually does a fantastic job of connecting people, and that's just not in a social sense. Like this woman, she's been here a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
And she knows Albert, and she's such a personable person. And yeah, I think when we finish up, we'll put a link to there as well in the comments. Okay, so someone asked to speak more about budget, because where this whole live originated from is that I'd mentioned that you know, I spend around 2,000, my budget is around 2,000 US. Now I work in Aussie dollars, so I sort of guess that a little bit. I'm going to talk in Aussie dollars here so I don't muck it all up. So my budget, my accommodation, including my electricity and cleaning, like I talked about before, is 550 Australian dollars a month. My scooter is 60 Australian dollars a month. My visa costs, because I'm currently doing the come in on a visa on arrival, VOA, and extending while I'm here. So including using an agent, my visa costs every 6 weeks, because that's how often I'm leaving, is 265 Australian dollars.
But she could leave every 8 weeks.
I could leave
that
every
would
8
extend
weeks,
your
yeah.
budget.
Yeah. My food, because I have a teenage boy and he kills my food budget.
Yeah, he really does.
And he's also quite fussy and won't eat local food a lot. My food budget is probably $200 a week.
That's about right, yeah.
And that's including eating out at restaurants sometimes as well, and you know, and a couple of beers here and there, maybe a cocktail, and you know, I'm not scrimping on that. And then I kind of work in another 100 or so just for extra experiences, you know, like we're talking about going over to an island this weekend, or doing something, because when you're travelling there, you don't want to just be sitting in your house all the time. You want to experience where you are, right? Yeah. So, yeah, so that's pretty much my budget. I don't think I've missed anything there. If anyone else want to know any other expenses that I may have forgotten, yeah, I'm happy to share that. Just send me a message.
Mine's about 2,000 US dollars, and we live really well also, and mine is quite high also because of Rowan's tuition. His tuition is 700 US dollars a month, which is double what I'm paying for our living expenses, and I'm aware of that. But it's what I prioritize as a human in my life right now. We're on a waiting list for a much more affordable school if it were to open up. and by affordable, I mean I think it's like $300 US for a it meets 3 mornings a week homeschool. But yeah, you can have a really, I think Tammy, who we were just talking about, she tells people about $1,000 US per person a month gives you a really good life here. But you can scrimp and save. You don't have to pay tuition like that. I spend a lot of money on natural health stuff. Like this is like the queen of the place to like have all these cool alternative healing and health experiences. So my budget also is a little skyrocketed for the sound healing and the light therapy and you know, acupuncture, Reiki, all of it, yoga practice. So that's just the way it is, and I'm happy to spend that money right now.
Okay. Now, wow, there was a really important question brought up. If you ended up hospitalised, who would look after your children until family arrived? Is there any social system set up for that? So I'm going to give my opinion there, and I don't know what Megan's opinion is, but I'll let her give hers as well, because once again, this is all about perspective. Yeah. So my opinion is, I talked about the people of Bali and how warm and welcoming and family orientated they are, how high their values are placed on families.
Usually.
If I look at the situation of, I ended up in hospital and, you know, I've got no one else here to look after my son, my expectation would be, and once again I can't prove this because it hasn't happened, but I would expect that he would come along with me and that he'd just be taken care of along with me. Like, I cannot foresee him being left to the side at all, and I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar on that. Now, as well, to add to that, I think building relationships with the local people is really important as well. Don't just, if you're going to come here, don't just sit yourself out as a outsider. Build relationships, get to know people. Example, we've been coming here, well, I've been coming here for probably 20 years or more, mostly as holiday, only the last 10 months living. But I've used the same driver all the time. Now, I could quite possibly pay less for a different driver, and I could quite possibly just, you know, take up any, oh, we're having a special, all that sort of stuff. But that relationship I've built with that driver, and because of their values on friends and family, is worth more than I could ever pay for. Yeah, and so I know that if I was walking down the street and I fell over and I broke my leg, the first person I would call would be G'day. And he would have a contact that's 5 minutes away from me. And he'd drop everything and look after me and Dylan. I know that. So that's kind of what I have to say on that situation.
Yeah, I think also, like, she lives on a family compound and I live on a family compound, which is pretty typical of this area. And what we mean by that is the houses have several buildings on them, or the compounds do, and a lot of people have added little rental properties to rent out to people on their properties. And so we're not actually staying in their houses. They've built separate houses that we live on, but it also means that we have added security, where like in Canggu, there's a lot more robberies, a lot more violence. That's a bigger risk there. Here, nobody's gonna rob you because the mom and papa of the villa are protecting your stuff and watching out for you. So that's an added security as a single parent that person's there. And I do love this question also about what would you do if something happened to you, because this is one of the biggest fears and worries as you travel, and that our families are worried about too. What's going to happen if something happens to you? And I know personally I've laid awake many hours like thinking about this. I said I would never go someplace where tsunamis or earthquakes or volcanoes were a threat. And here I am living in Bali and loving it. And you realize that you have to live your life without worrying about what's going to happen, but you have to take precautions to prevent a bad situation from going worse. So for example, Rowan knows my number. Rowan has a cell phone with contacts in it. SIM cards are super cheap. They're like $7 a month, if that. I've heard of people like writing their phone numbers on their child's arm or having like those GPS watches. The relationships thing is really huge. For Trina, I thought something was wrong with me when we first got here, and I was really nervous and afraid about that. And Trina and I weren't even really good friends at that point. I had just met her, but I knew she was a good person. And I told Rowan that if something dies from this thing, if I die because of this thing in my stomach, he needs to go into my Facebook account. He needs to find this woman named Trina, because he remembered Dylan from the family summit. And he needs to message her, because Trina would then take care of us, and now we're better friends. So I have no doubt that if Trina needed something, she would call me, as she has. She's had a couple an emergency recently that she needed to message me. And likewise, that if something happened, there is enough community around that would support that. I've heard of other parents teaching their kids how to access money from the ATM, how to call home. So there's definitely ways around it. Taking a picture of where you're staying in your child's cell phone or your cell phone so they know. It's just education, education, education. And also anytime, like if I'm gonna run to the store, or anytime I leave Rowan, which is not very often, but anytime I do, we have a plan. Like if there's an earthquake, he knows what to do. If we need a meeting place, it's the restaurant that's just right around the corner if we need to find each other. So it's just something that you kind of have to negate the risk and plan for an emergency situation, just like at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just all the more incentive to go to the community gatherings so you can make friends faster.
Absolutely.
So you have a village and community.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking.
Ooh, wow.
We've been
love to talk.
We've been on for 46 minutes. There's a couple more questions. One, Jennifer, you've just brought up here. How do you find the compounds? So I guess I was looking for long-term rentals, and when I say long-term, 1 month to 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. There's quite a few Facebook groups that are rentals, and that they're all advertised. Well, not all. They're advertised in there, but also just walking around you can find it. I personally have never done that, because I like to know how much something is before I go and ask. So that they don't make me cave and go over my budget. Yeah. But yeah, the Facebook groups is where I found all my rentals, and that's where I found this compound as well.
Facebook groups, Airbnb. I found the one I'm staying at in Airbnb. If you ever want the link to it, I can give it to you. There's a downstairs and an upstairs. We're in the upstairs part. But yeah, it's my understanding that if you just go door to door, you can go to booking.com, agoda.com, hotels.com, Airbnb, and you can find thousands of options, which are just a fraction of the options of once you actually get here. And so if you want to come here and go door to door, you're going to find a cheaper price exactly where you want to be. And one more plug for Tammy is that she actually has a business now helping people find where they're going to live. So if you need it, if you would like the added support, if you know you're going to come live in Bali or Ubud, she's a wonderful resource where she can hold your hand through that process and be your hands and feet on the ground before you get here.
Okay, so this last one, the last question that come up, I'm just going to touch on it lightly because it's one that we could dig into really deep, and we have been on for over 45 minutes now, so I don't want to take up any more time. But it was about one of us was saying that she's a professional photographer and wanted to come here and look at a welfare situation and what issues do we see here. For me, the biggest one in your face is pollution and plastic. And, I've been coming here a long time, and Bali is moving in the right direction, but there's still a lot to be done in that area, and I'm happy to talk to anyone any more about my insights into that, and projects that I've just recently seen actually that locals are getting involved in quickly. It's turning plastic into oil that they use. Like, cool things like that are happening with more education. there are orphanages around, and it was mentioned about exploitation. I really don't have enough knowledge on the background of that to offer an opinion there. But once again, I'm happy to find out what I can.
I would say likewise. I mean, I've driven by something that says orphanage in Ubud, but my experience in Bali has been that families are solid and positive and thriving. They don't just ship out their loved ones. I mean, the families really live together on compounds, and I don't see a lot of orphanages or a lot of...
There are some.
Are there?
Yeah, there are some around, and it probably comes down to there's a lot of really poor people as well. I mean, it's like anywhere, I guess, in that sense. But I guess I don't have enough knowledge to be able to really stand firm in any opinion in that way. Yeah, so here we go. I think we've covered all the questions that were on the initial post, and I think we've covered everything there. Thank you for joining us, guys. I hope you got some benefit out of what we had to share. And as we were actually doing this, I realised how much we do have to share on it.
Yeah.
And like I said, either of us, I'll tag us in the post as well. I'll tag Megan in as well. Just send us a message if you've got any questions. Always more than happy to help. If you're looking at world schooling, you know, taking on the travelling lifestyle, full-time, part-time, whatever, I do offer heaps of great information on World School TV, and I'd love you to join me there and offer me any feedback on anything else you might want to learn about, and I can certainly get hold of the people to share that information with you. And a thought that has just come up while we've been doing this is maybe we can get a separate segment on World School TV that's specifically for single parents. So if you'd like that as well, please pop a comment below, and yeah, I don't know, we'll see where that can go. Thank you again. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you're up to, hope you're having a great day, and we'll hopefully see you in the world someday.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you for watching.
Bye.